Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. One of the things that we as black people need to focus on is disciplining our dollar. Now, when I say that, I don't just simply mean that as black people we need to make sure that we spend more money with black people, though for a lot of us, we just need to start spending money with black people, but also we need to be making sure that we don't use our money in order to fund, prop up, and to empower people who hate us. Yes, there are a number of industries and businesses where black people simply do not have a presence, largely because these industries are so government regulated that only a very precious few can get in to begin with, so we've been largely locked out. Now, with Memorial Day weekend behind us and the summer travel season having kicked off, I know a lot of you have got plans, and that's good. That's the reason why I chose to make airline travel the subject of this morning's briefing as a case study, hopefully a very, very relevant one for a lot of you, and why as black people, we need to make sure we don't let this stuff slide. Recently, this week, a number of black men were kicked off an American Airlines flight. We're talking about black men who didn't know each other, who hadn't boarded the plane together, who were seated in different parts of the plane. And the excuse given? A flight attendant had claimed that all of these men had body odor. Every single one of them, apparently. Not only were those 3 black men kicked off the flight because of this flight attendant's claim, but also so was every other black man on the flight. Again, all of them seated in different parts of the plane, all of them strangers. The only thing that they had in common was that they were black. None of them was non-black. But that's just one big happy coincidence, I'm sure, right? Now, if this had truly been a legitimate complaint that all of these black men, and only the black men, who were seated all throughout the plane, that apparently all of these guys apparently had BO, then why is it that after an hour, they let the men right back on the plane again? They let these guys right back on an hour later on the exact same plane. They kicked them off the plane just to let them back on again after an hour. So was this really about, oh, these guys, they're smelling or something? Or is this just another case of racist airline employees who want to remind black people we can kick you off the plane just because? Yeah, we're lying, but nothing's going to be done about it. Because the only thing that stinks is this accusation. Now, if you've ever flown on a plane, you know that black people get on there fresh as a rose, damn near wearing their Sunday best. I have had numerous occasions where I've been on a plane or a commuter train, and it's almost inevitable that a, let's say, non-urban passenger can be smelled from several rows away, either because they're drunk or they slept in the airport overnight and didn't bother to shower before getting on the airplane. A lot of them bring their pets on board with them, and I'll tell you right now, the dog stinks less than they do. People wearing wife-beater shirts, torn jeans, flip-flops, they look like a gang of pirates. Now, these airplanes are supposed to have HEPA filters on board to sanitize the air, but on at least one occasion I can attest, those filters don't work nearly good enough. It seems like the stores out in the suburbs or those rural areas don't sell soap or deodorant, and if they do, obviously the people who live there don't think they need it. Spoiler, they do. Video of the incident has since gone viral, and the men involved have filed a lawsuit, as they should, and they've given interviews, and when you talk to them, these guys are not sitting here mumbling and fumbling their words. These are not the kind of guys who clearly have trouble communicating. These are some clean-cut guys. These are some of the sharpest potheads that I've ever seen, and I say that because you got a lot of folks claiming, well, maybe these guys smell like weed. That's not what the flight attendant said. The flight attendant didn't claim they smelled like marijuana. The flight attendant specifically said body odor, all of them. So what this means is they were being singled out. And of course, American Airlines has issued their standard empty form letter like they always do, talking about they're investigating and committed to diversity, blah, blah, blah. But understand, they have an unbroken track record of doing this. In 2022, Odell Beckham, they threw all kinds of false accusations at him. American Airlines accused him of being unresponsive to the flight attendants on board, but the cops arrived and he was awake and alert, and even the police said, "He looks fine to me." One of the flight attendants said that he had on only underwear. Now, how the hell would he have even gotten on a plane wearing just his drawers? That was clearly a lie, and when the police got there, he was wearing pants. So he's a magician too, apparently, making apparel appear out of nowhere. And you had a blonde, rather zesty-looking individual who was flopping his wrists and catching the vapors about this pro athlete being on board the plane. But notice what this white Hispanic-appearing individual says.
Where's his pants?
Oh, sorry?
Where's the baby's pants?
What do you mean?
Because he only got his underwear. Yeah.
Yeah, they're on.
Are they on now?
Yeah.
You hear that? She says, "Where's the baby's pants?"
No, sir. Where's his pants?
Oh, sorry?
Where's the baby's pants?
This is how she's talking to the police. During an official investigation, they call the cops, they call the paramedics, and this is what she's saying. And she's talking about a passenger in first class during what she's claiming to be some sort of medical emergency or some other kind of red alert situation, and this is how she's talking about it. And the body language of these flight attendants is hostile and combative. Now, Mr. Beckham, he was not being argumentative with anybody. He wasn't being combative with anybody. He's sitting there, but they got their arms folded, being condescending and insulting. So is this really just some big, huge emergency that went down, or was it just garden variety racism? Because if they're really so concerned about his health, like they claimed, then why are they talking about him like this? Does this heifer sound like a professional working for an airline, or does she sound like your garden variety 2-bit racist? The officers, of course, told her that he has his pants on. So if they were really so concerned about this black man running around the plane without his pants on, why weren't they there watching him? Wouldn't that have been common sense? This was a case of racist airline employees who wanted to show that they could kick a black passenger off the plane simply because. And this is the reason why I highlighted for you that rash of reports in the white media about passengers behaving badly on planes. Because what they were trying to do was to condition the public for this. For black passengers to be wholesale removed for no reason whatsoever, even though it's white passengers who are the vast majority of disruptive passengers and even violent passengers. This isn't about airline safety or public safety. It's about reinforcing anti-black discrimination in public transportation. That's what this is about. Of course, they won't be claiming that it's because you're black. They'll be claiming that it's because of something else. Now, in response to the incident with Mr. Beckham, American Airlines issued the standard empty letter talking about how they're investigating and that they're committed to diversity, etc. Sha'Carri Richardson had an argument with a flight attendant, and the argument was about the flight attendant telling her she can't take video while awaiting departure. Now, of course, there's no federal regulations against taking video on an airplane, and in fact, this has been well established. So this wasn't about her taking video. If she had been white, there would have been no problem at all, and we know there wouldn't have been because there's tons of YouTube videos of white passengers taking video while entering the airport, while they're checking in, while they're at the gate, while they're on the boarding ramp, while taking their seat, while the crew is giving safety instructions, during takeoff, during landing, while they're departing the plane. Every single aspect of the flight they take video of, and it's never a problem if it's a white passenger doing it. But a black person decides to also take a cell phone video and it becomes a flight safety problem, they have to kick you off the plane? No. After this, American Airlines issued the standard empty letter talking about they're investigating and committed to diversity, etc. But that same week, the immigrant Talib Kweli got his wake-up call when he was briefly removed from a plane after a flight attendant wanted to argue with him about luggage space. It took a second flight attendant getting involved to calm down the first flight attendant and to inform them that Talib Kweli could go ahead and put his luggage under his seat, which was what he was trying to do from the beginning, apparently. American Airlines, in response to this incident, issued the standard empty letter talking about they're investigating and committed to diversity, etc. Last year, you had another incident involving musician David Ryan Harris. This time, he was flying with his 2 children who happened to be biracial. In this incident, a flight attendant began asking Mr. Harris's children questions, but only asking them questions. Then, upon landing, they had the police waiting to harass Mr. Harris. Why? The flight attendant accused him of child trafficking his own biracial children. Apparently, nobody ever bothered to look at the flight manifest to find out who these children were. Apparently, they didn't think to do that. Here's a black man sitting in first class, and he's got 2 children with him whose skin tone is a little bit lighter than his. And as far as the flight attendant is concerned, there must be child trafficking going on. Now, do we need to actually say who the majority of child trafficking perpetrators are? Here's a hint. They don't look like Mr. Harris. In response to this incident, American Airlines issued the standard empty letter talking about they're investigating and committed to diversity, etc. And then, just last month, you had a retired judge who a flight attendant accused of slamming the door to the first-class bathroom. That's what happened. Apparently, there's going to be an argument about that. The woman made it very clear no such thing happened and calmed down. But then the flight attendant decided to tell her, in the future, you need to use the bathroom at the back of the plane. This woman's sitting in first class, and they want to start an argument about that. This is obviously not about the bathroom. This is about the American Airlines employees understanding that they have carte blanche to be as racist as they want to be because American Airlines truly earns the name. They are, like America, racist as hell. And of course, in response to this incident, American Airlines also issued their standard empty letter talking about their investigating and committed to diversity, etc. Now, I don't know where most of those black men on this most recent incident were seated, but if the other cases were any indication, at least one of them had to be in first class. That's what these other cases had in common, black people who were seated in first class. But nonetheless, when you see a pattern of years-long consistent behavior like this, you're not dealing with coincidences. These are not just one big, huge list of happenstances. This is the airline showing you what their official policy is. So if it's not false claims of body odor, it's going to be false claims that you're drunk, or as the zesty flight attendant said about Mr. Beckham, we don't know what's going on, but they'll kick you off the plane regardless. And if it's not that, then it's going to be that your luggage can't be put under your seat, or that you're human trafficking your own children, or that you can't take cell phone video on a plane even though you can, or that you can't use the first class bathroom even though you're seated in first class. It's always going to be something. And while American Airlines may indeed be the worst offender in this regard, they're far from the only ones. This is an industry-wide problem. It's across United, Southwest, Frontier, Spirit, you name it. And this is evidence that there is a clear, open culture of anti-black racism among these airlines, because you can't kick a passenger off the plane without the captain being in on it. It's the captain who makes the call as to whether or not the passenger is going to be ejected. Black passengers are the first ones to get bumped from flights if there's too many passengers. I've seen this in videos, by the way, and it's been well documented. If there's an overbooked flight, the protocol is supposed to be to start with whomever the last passenger is on the flight and bump them first. But the way that it works in practice is, if the last passenger on a flight is white, then the white flight attendant or gate agent is going to ask them, do you want for us to bump you? Of course, the white passenger is going to say, no, I've got an important place I need to get to. And the white gate agent will say, okay, that's fine. We'll leave you on the plane. And they'll move on to the next passenger, and they'll keep asking until they get to a black passenger. And when they do, they'll tell the black passenger, you're being bumped from the flight. And it doesn't matter how good your reason is. It doesn't matter how crucial your need to travel is. They'll tell you, well, somebody's got to get bumped and it's going to be you. See, this is just one of the numerous ways that they get around racial discrimination laws. That's what's happening here. All of these excuses and such, these scumbags, just like the police, you better believe they compare notes to each other. Hey, you want to get some black people off the plane? All you got to do is just say this. Hey, you want to show those black people who's boss? Oh, I can't stand having these black people on my flights. This is what they do. Okay, this stuff is not happening just out of a vacuum. This is the culture among these flight attendants, but also among the pilots and the gate agents, because it can't work without all of them being in on it. White passengers are exempt from the rules regarding intoxication, unless you're just literally pee on yourself drunk, and even then, they'll probably still let you on the plane. Meanwhile, if you're a stone-sober black passenger on a flight, they'll make a false accusation against you, and even with no evidence of intoxication, even with the police telling them he looks fine, they'll still say they want to kick this black person off the flight. Now, since it's the flight attendants who are the ones most responsible for kicking off these racist incidents, it's only fair to ask what the hell's going on with the flight attendants union. The head of the Flight Attendants Association is a woman named Sarah Nelson. I remember her face from when I was doing interviews and Twitter posts about the violent, mostly non-black passengers on flights, and I remember that she had a Black Lives Matter sign behind her during her television interviews. That was in 2022, though. It's been a couple of years since then, and she's clearly had a change of heart, because now she's got a union sign covering up that BLM decoration she's got. This is the woman who's the head of the Flight Attendants Association. She's demanding more pay for these people and claiming that flight attendants are in danger from the passengers. But while these incidents I've told you about for the last few years have been going on, Sarah Nelson hasn't said one piddling word about it. Now, what does that tell you? All this woman has is a Black Lives Matter sign behind her, and that's her basically doing her pathetic attempt at virtue signaling. Not that she actually cares about black people, but because as a union, she depends on union votes for her to be the head of the union. And she's showing, though, exactly what she really thinks. Black Lives Matters indeed. This is how you know that American Airlines, they're not the only ones who do this phony, altruistic garbage. Oh, we care about diversity. Yeah, and I bet you Sarah Nelson will tell you the exact same thing. That's how you know that you're up against an organized offense. Now, something needs to be done, but we have to stop waiting to see if these civil rights fossils are going to move, because in 2017, during the first year of the Trump presidency, the NAACP woke up from their coma and tried to get some quickie headlines for themselves by issuing a travel advisory for black passengers saying to avoid American Airlines. Well, you can guess what happened next. The white racist who run that airline invited the NAACP over, no doubt on flights provided by American Airlines, and then the NAACP had a change of heart and decided all was forgiven. And we all know what probably happened. The NAACP was probably given complimentary flight tickets by the airline or some other goodies to get them to announce that all was well. And we see how long that clean bill of health lasted. Pete Buttigieg is supposed to be the transportation secretary, and he's telling the airlines that they have to list all of their fees, but he's not demanding that they have to list all the racial incidents that they've had. How many times have they kicked black passengers off of flights? That should be public knowledge. But a more pressing question is, what the hell has the so-called transportation secretary even done about it? This is the Biden administration, mind you. The guy who we were all told had our backs and would do something about at least some of the racism that we've been subjected to. All you clowns who were talking that crap 4 years ago, you got played. No, you played yourselves. Racism is something that only black people are subjected to. Anyone else, they don't have any racism claim. At worst, they're momentarily inconvenienced by some personality conflict or another. Because as we saw with Odell Beckham, you can have all these non-black people who get on code against a black person, and they'll all lie and lock arms in order to do it. So black folks, it matters who you spend your money with. I'm using the airlines as a specific case study, but we all know that this is a problem that we face across the board in every single arena of commerce. It matters to make sure that you keep that in mind, but we also need alternatives to this ultimately. The best way to make sure that you are not subject to anti-black racism is to make sure that you control not just the resources, but the means of production. Whatever it is you're trying to do, whatever it is you're trying to get, wherever it is you're trying to go, you're a lot less likely to have all of the black male passengers on the flight singled out and put off the plane, or to have the only black woman sitting in first class told that she has to go to the back of the plane if you have apparatuses that are actually owned and operated by black people. Black customers have to be aware. Weaponize our wallets, but also weaponize the law. Make it clear that if these airborne Aryans think that they're going to be targeting black people, well, that won't fly. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Delvian Burton, Faith Speaks Life, Norma Anthony, Onan X, and Stephanie Roselle. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.